Greetings! I am Shawn Redman, aka the cheesily named Darth Shawn. And last night I was watching Collider Jedi Council, which is one of the best Star Wars shows on YouTube, and I would recommend checking it out. But they had a fan tweet into them and ask them about women in the new canon Star Wars and who they felt was the strongest. Well, that made me think, yeah, that'd be a really good topic to talk about. So I'm going to do my top 5 women in Star Wars here today. Now, if you've watched any of my other videos, you'll know that I'm a big fan of Rey Sloane. We've seen her in A New Dawn, as well as Aftermath. I've had interesting levels of like and dislike in both those books, but one consistency in them is Rey Sloane. She is very strong female character, but an Imperial, and that was very interesting because we hadn't really seen a whole lot of female Imperials in the original trilogy, and she's obviously behind the scenes. As explained in Aftermath, she really got overlooked. Like, she did the right thing in New Dawn, she did the thing to get promoted and moved up, and it just kind of sat her at the back end of the food chain when it came to the Imperial forces. But we see her taking more and more power in Aftermath, so much so that it looks like we may see more of her going forward. At least I very much hope so, because she is a character that has really grown through those 2 novels, and I would love to see where she goes as a villain. There's a lot of rumors around Rey. There's a lot of rumors that say that she is going to be the mother of Finn in Force Awakens. I could see that. It's a very distinct possibility. But even if it's not something like that, I would love to see in the novels, or maybe even in the movies, to see a little bit more of Sloane as she grows and as she is that Imperial force of villainy behind it. Now, Asajj Ventress is not someone I've talked about very much, and that's probably unfortunate because she is easily one of the best characters in the Clone Wars series. She debuted in the Tartakovsky Clone Wars shorts. I hope I pronounced his name right. And fought Anakin Skywalker, and there was a very, very cool dark side element to her. She was Dooku's apprentice. We saw that continue in the later Clone Wars series after Revenge of the Sith, and she just continued to grow as a character. Training under Dooku and running missions and fighting Obi-Wan and Anakin and the Jedi quite a bit. But where she really took a turn as a great character was in the middle, I believe it's season 3 of the Clone Wars. If you haven't watched Clone Wars, this is a little bit of a spoiler, so I apologize, but this is going to be a spoiler-heavy episode. But Dooku betrays her because Palpatine just basically says, get rid of her. And so she kind of becomes her own person after that, and we really get a lot of depth to Asajj. We see backstories with his sisters and the Night Sisters, and that leads into Darth Maul and Savage Opress sagas in the Clone Wars. And then you really get that close to Asajj Ventress' story if you've read Dark Disciple. Now, that's where she's at her best, because her playing off of the Jedi Quinlan Vos is just incredible. And as a character, she goes from this just kind of stereotypical but good villain to this really deep character, and that is why she is easily one of the best women in Star Wars. Ahsoka Tano. Now, earlier this week I talked about the Clone Wars movie that came out in theaters, and how terrible it is. Well, out of it came a character, Ahsoka Tano. They introduced her as the Padawan to Anakin Skywalker, and she was terrible. She was annoying, and she had weird little Star Wars quips that remind you of the prequels, and she called people silly names. And in the first season of the Clone Wars, that kind of continued. You could see a little bit there. But about season 2 into 3, something started to change, and you started to see Ahsoka Tano grow up. And you realized that a lot of those quips, a lot of those silliness, a lot of those things that annoyed you was because she was a little kid. She was a little kid trying to fit in and with these grown-ups. And that was her way she did it. And as she grew up and became more mature and went through a lot of these things, she started to become this really deep character. So much so that by season 5, she's easily one of my favorite characters in the series, if not my favorite, because a lot of the Clone Wars is about Anakin, Obi-Wan, and the Jedi, and everything that happened. But you start to see that so much of it is still Ahsoka Tano's story. And when we get to season 5 and she's put on trial and Tarkin is putting on trial where she is facing literally potentially death because of betraying the Jedi Council and the Republic, and that whole interaction with her and Anakin Skywalker in that, I think it's 4-episode saga where Anakin's trying to track her down and trying to prove that she's innocent and all these things that go forward. It's one of the best stories that we've ever gotten out of Star Wars. And there's this moment, and again, this is a spoiler. If you haven't watched the show, I apologize. But there's this moment where after Ahsoka is found innocent, she leaves the Jedi Order. She realizes, I can't trust them. And there's this moment with her and Anakin Skywalker that perfectly encompasses why Anakin would betray and become Darth Vader, was that gaining mistrust. But there's that moment where Ahsoka acknowledges, I know what you're doing, Anakin. I know that you have this love behind the back of the Jedi. I'm not saying anything. And it's very similar to Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith, who basically, when he's talking to Padme near the end, he goes, that's Anakin's kid. I know you're carrying Anakin's kid. Hey, I've known. And it's that moment. It's just so perfectly, and it shows how well the Clone Wars understood the characters. And that's one of those things about Ahsoka that grows up. Now, the great part about Ahsoka Tano is we still get more of her as she has been introduced into Rebels. And pretty sure that we've discovered that she now knows that Darth Vader is Anakin Skywalker. And so as we get into Rebels Season 2, and I'm sure there'll be a lot of episodes talking about Rebels Season 2 when we get there, on October 14th, not too long, but the growth that she has had and where she's going to go, it's exciting. And that is pretty incredible that a character that I absolutely hated has become such this incredible and great character in the Star Wars universe. Bet this one surprised you a little bit. Most people would assume that Princess Leia would be number 1. But no, she's number 2. And that's not to say that Princess Leia is not a great character, because she is the beginning of female characters in Star Wars. I mean, just look at the original trilogy, and this was a state of a lot of movies in general, but just looking at the original trilogy, Princess Leia is one of the few women in the whole trilogy. I mean, you've got Aunt Beru, you got Mon Mothma, you got women here and there, but there's only one major female character throughout the whole series, and that's Princess Leia. And from the moment we're introduced to her as kind of the damsel in distress, but we know she's not really a damsel in distress. We know that, she can handle herself as she's willing to hold a blaster. She's willing to, fight and stand up to people. And as a trilogy, she grows so much. She's not just there's so many things that we look at when we say Princess Leia, well, she's just the sex idol from the slave outfit, or she's, the buns in her hair in the first one, just different outfits and the different things that come forward. She's more than that. She's such a dynamic character that grows so much and is willing to do so much to try to help her friends, to help her family, to help these people. And because she went through such traumatic loss, as we see her planet was destroyed. I've told, in one of my very, very early videos that I hated the Princess Leia comic series. And that's very true. And it was unfortunate because Princess Leia is such a great character. But the Leia comic series was bad. But one thing that it did get right was it showing the impact that Alderaan's destruction had on her. And that was very interesting as a whole to see. But as a whole, as I said, Princess Leia is... A lot of women grew up wanting to be Princess Leia and wanting to portray as Princess Leia, as Carrie Fisher did in the Star Wars universe. So it'd be impossible to have a list of women in Star Wars without having the first Princess Leia. Now, if you watched my Lost Stars review yesterday, you'll know how much I love this book. So I will admit that there is a very good possibility that part of this ranking is because it is so fresh in my mind. But that being said, there has never been a female character. Heck, I don't think there's been a character as a whole that has really touched me the way that Sienna Rhee did in Lost Stars. She is so perfectly written, as I said, by Claudia Gray, so perfectly fleshed out throughout this book, and something that we had never truly seen. We'd seen Ray Sloane as an Imperial that is, does some good things, but most of the part is still the villain. But we saw something with Sienna Rhee that we had never seen, and that was an Imperial that was good. An Imperial that wanted to always do the right thing, that hated seeing death, that, would rationalize things like any human does. We rationalize things a lot. They all, when Alderaan blew up, they had to, because we had to stop a war, we had to do that. We had to snuff the rebels out, those pilots had to die. I don't like it, and she does that a lot. But at the same point, it hurts her and it breaks her down. And as a character, she is broken so many times throughout that and comes back and continues to be stronger and stronger and is just this character that we all strive to be, despite the fact that she is on the wrong side. She is part of the side that is enslaving people and hurting people and killing people, and yet she wants to provide good. And she is good. She still believes that she can be good in this circumstance. And that comes from loyalty, the loyalty that she has as her family and her culture and her friends. And as a whole, Sienna is just everything that we want to be can be encompassed in Sienna Rhee. And all the failings that we have had can be encompassed in her. And that is why she is the most human, the most realistic character that we have seen in the Star Wars universe. And she is easily one of my favorite, if not my favorite, of all characters, not just of females. She is just an incredible character. And as I said yesterday, all props to Claudia Gray, because that is the best characters that have come out. So, not a huge surprise if you've watched my review yesterday that Sienna Rhee is she's just the best. So what do you guys think? Obviously, there are quite a few great females that have been left out at this point. Hera Syndulla, Sabine, from Rebels are the two major ones coming out. We got a lot of great female characters that are coming out in the new movies. Rey, Captain Phasma, we may see more of Mon Mothma. We may see, a lot more of these other characters that are going to be a part of it. You can argue that Padme from the original trilogy, they're not the original, the prequel trilogy, that's a big mistake, the prequel trilogy could be one of the top females out there. So what is your top favorite women in Star Wars? Let me know in the comments below. And as always, I am Shawn Revman, aka the cheesily named Darth Shawn, and may the Force be with you. Always.